Hey, thank you for joining us today. My name is Julian, and welcome to our Golden Visas and Passport Program Masterclass. This is a series where we're going to go over every possible thing about Golden Visas and Passport programs, and we're going to start at the beginning with choosing the right program for your family, the basics, and all the sort of things, the kind of questions that most people tend to have at the beginning of their decision-making process. So let's go right into full screen mode and jump right into it. Choosing the right program for your family. This is me, and you can pause the screen and take a look at that, but we're not going to talk about this. It's not about me, it's about you. But it is about Holborn Assets as well. And this is the wealth management and financial services firm. We have a global footprint, and this is Holborn Pass is the subsidiary of Holborn Assets. Holborn Assets is a full spectrum wealth management financial services firm. Holborn Pass just handles the global solution, the global citizenship solutions, golden visas, and passport programs. We've got 20 offices around the world. We've been handling almost $5 billion, over $5 billion in assets. We are the number one provider of the Portugal Golden Visa, but we do any investment-based program. So we do the Caribbean. We sell a lot of Caribbeans. We do a lot of Italy's, a lot of Greece's, a lot of UAE as well. We just happen to do most of the Portugal Golden Visas ever submitted have been by us. So today we're going to talk about the individualized approach I take when we're in a when you're in your consultation with me. Then we're going to talk about the basic program frameworks and all these basic questions that clients always ask me. Who can we include, and what investments are available, and how much do things cost, and things like that. And a few things, a few special things we need to talk about that can that we should talk about when we're discussing what options you have. So, but it all begins with the free consultation. And in the free consultation, that is when you and I get to know each other and I come to understand your needs, your goals, your wants, and your demands. Every client's unique. Every family situation is different. Why you want one of these programs, why you want a second passport, why you want a backup um, residency in Europe, for example. It's different with everybody. It could be for retirement. The Portugal Golden Visa is one of the best retirement assets you can have. Um, any EU Golden Visa for that, to be honest with you, Greece, Malta, and Italy as well. So everybody's situation is unique. Every family is unique. So we need to. I learn about you in that free consultation, and it's not just one consultation. If it takes three, four, five consultations, then that's what we do. But my goal in the consultation is to genuinely learn and understand your family, and then put that into the dynamics of our industry and reach you a solution. For some families, there's multiple solutions that would work. So then we have to talk about which one of those would be best for you. But for some clients, there's sometimes only one solution, and then that's just the way it is, and we have to, just move forward with that. Um, but again, all these things factor in your budget, who's involved, why, where, all those kind of things, and how soon you want to implement it. All those things we talk about in the consultations and factor into reaching that solution. So let's just begin with what the basics, the very eligibility situation of who can even do these. And pretty much anybody can do these programs. There genuinely is a program for just about everybody, but not every program is for everybody. So each program has its own requirements about who can apply based on nationality. For example, the EU programs, currently they restrict Russians. Russians can't apply for the EU program. But for the United States EB-5 Golden Visa, everyone can apply. Syrians, Iranians, North Koreans, Russians, doesn't matter. So it just depends upon the program. The main applicant must be an adult, must be 18 years of age or older. That's pretty much the only major issue there. Just as long as the main applicant's at least 18 years of age. And then, of course, there's the background checks, all the necessary things, the due diligence, both on the people and the money. Source of funds has to be done. Some programs require source of wealth. Just to be clear, source of funds is, let's say you're transferring $500,000. Source of funds is, where did that $500,000 come from? Where did it go? How did you make that $500,000? Source of wealth is, let's say the program's $500,000, but your net worth is $5 million. Well, where did that $5 million come from? How did you make that $5 million? That's source of wealth versus source of funds. The vast majority of programs only focus on source of funds, but there are a few programs that look at source of wealth as well. And again, things like sanctions lists, no-fly lists, any visa rejections. This is important, especially for Caribbean passports. If you've been denied a visa, if you've been denied entry, if you've been kicked out of a country, if you've been deported from a country, even if no criminal sanctions or any criminal liability happened as a result of that deportation, just the fact that you were removed from a country factors into the decision-making process and the due diligence for these programs. And that's really any visa in general, but it comes to the forefront on these programs. So this is just the basic eligibility criteria. There's the only other thing is the ability to afford the programs, obviously. But those put together, this is really the basic criteria. That's all that needs to be met. Now, that's really regarding the main applicant, but sometimes it's just a main applicant. Sometimes it's just a single person, just a guy or an entrepreneurial woman or whoever that wants to do it. But usually these are families, and everybody's family is different, right? And this is actually a big decision a big factor in which program is eligible for you, because each program identifies their own family structure, who is eligible to be added. The main applicant, the spouse, the legally married spouse, and minor children is universal. Every single application, every single program out there will allow the main applicant to add their legally married spouse and their minor children, minor being under 18. That's standard every single program. Now, let's say you have a partner. You don't have a legally married spouse, but you have a partner. Well, there's still programs that will allow that. Let's say you have adult kids over the age of 18. There's programs that will allow that. Let's say you want to include your parents or your grandparents, or the main applicant wants to have their brother or their sister join. All of these dependents are eligible for some programs, but not all programs. So if the main applicant, my client is the main applicant. Now, if the main applicant is going to add their spouse, of course, I'll be talking to the whole couple. I'll be talking to the whole family. But when I say client, I'm specifically referencing the main applicant. So let's say the main applicant wants to add his brother. Well, there's two programs that will allow that. But just keep in mind that if adding your brother is a requirement, then only those two programs are going to be a solution. So this is sort of how we go from, understanding your situation to finding the solutions for it. So eligible dependents factors into that. But again, the traditional family structure of mom, dad, and the little kids, that's every single program allows that. So there is a few special considerations we want to talk about at this stage also when we're discussing what programs would be good fit for you. And that's the family in general. Are there any LGBTQ plus members? Is that the reason you're looking for one of these programs? Some countries like Portugal are very, very, very LGBTQ forward, very, very hospitable for LGBTQ plus families. Other countries like the UAE, you're going to probably not want to consider that country. So we want to talk about that. Things like X passports. If anybody has the passport with the X where the gender is, this is a very, very important topic to talk about because it needs to be understood. This has nothing to do with your decision and why you have the X there. This has to do with the official document, and other countries don't have to recognize an X. Okay, there are some countries that will not recognize an X and consider an X passport an invalid document. So now, again, this is not all the countries, but it is becoming, unfortunately, it is becoming more and more common simply because, and again, the good guys always get punished here, simply because There's a lot of identity theft going on. There's a lot of criminality that people are trying to masquerade as other things, and they can use these types of passports to hide the real identity. And the less information, the better for those kind of people. And unfortunately, again, it hurts the good people, but this is the situation we deal with. And it's my job just to bring you the facts. It's my job to bring the real world, the reality to you, so that we can get you the solutions that you need. So if you have an ex passport, or if anybody in the family has an ex passport, this is an issue we need to discuss. It may not factor in at all, but we need to talk about it just in case it does. Certain medical conditions, a lot of programs do require pre-medical clearances. Because they don't want, a lot of countries outside the United States have nationalized healthcare, and this is kind of one of those areas that it's archaic. It came from before because the vast majority of our clients you have to have private health insurance to do these programs. That's a requirement. You have to come with your own private health insurance. And so you're not going to be using the public healthcare system. You're going to be using the private healthcare system. And so this is kind of a factor that's been left over from years ago, but it is still in the programs. You do need there are programs that do require a pre-medical clearance. And so if you have any serious medical conditions, we need to talk about that. And any background concerns as well. The due diligence varies from country to country to country. Some countries, you can't even have, if you were arrested 30 years ago for disorderly conduct, some countries that matters. Other countries, they don't even request a criminal background check. So this is something that we need to talk about. If there's anything in the background that you just feel we should talk about now, then let's talk about it now, because it's best to do it at this point instead of having it found out later. Because anything that's there will get found later. If it's it's like the internet. Once you post something on the internet, you can try to erase it. You can pretend you didn't do it, but it's always going to be there somewhere. And that's the way these things are. So it's always best, anything that you think may come up, let's just talk about it, and we can either roll it out or work from there. But just special considerations to have at the very beginning. The earlier we get to these things, the better off the whole process moves. And again, none of these things are necessarily deal breakers. It just may change what that final solution looks like, and they may not affect you at all. Like LGBTQ, if your ID is Portugal, LGBTQ doesn't matter at all. Ex-passport really won't matter for Portugal either. So just we just need to know certain things at the beginning. And again, the family structure and the background and all that's one. But the other part of this whole thing is, the budget and exactly what is the investment? What are you getting for your money other than the passport or the residency? Now, all these programs have at least one investment option. Most have more than one, but for some there is only one. But most have more than one. And these are the big four. These are the industry tried and true investment vehicles. Real estate, hotels, in some way, shape, or form, hotels, hospitality industry. Contribution, which is just like a gift, giving your money to the buying. And then corporate share, company shares, fund shares, things like that. Now, real estate has traditionally been the most popular option. However, and unfortunately, real estate is being removed from a lot of these programs. There's very few left that will allow you to invest in real estate as part of the program, simply because they're blaming real estate for the rising prices of rent and stuff like that. It's not really true, but it gets the job done for what they want, pushes the money into these other things. So there is still a few programs that allow real estate. Hospitality is becoming more and more prevalent. Contribution, all passport programs have a contribution element to them. And shares, whether it's corporate shares, like shares in a company, or shares in a fund shares, many golden visas are becoming based on that. So these are the big four. There's some other ones like a bank deposit and a bond. They're very rare. Bank deposits are not really a good move, simply because of there's a hold on your investment. So if you purchase real estate, you have to keep it for X number of years. If you invest in a share, you have to, if you invest in a fund, you have to stay in the fund X number of years. So if you choose a bank deposit, you have to leave the money there for X number of years. And 20 years from now, or 20 years, not necessarily 20 years, 5 years from now, when you can get that money out, it may not be worth because of the currency conversions that it was then. So it's not necessarily, it's not a good move to do things like bank deposits. These are the four best that have over the years proven to be best for the investor, as well as the programs. So these are the big four: real estate, hotels, hospitality in some aspect, the contribution in shares and funds, companies. Now, as far as what that required investment's going to look like. So if you did any kind of Googling on like Portugal or Greece golden visa, it's always going to say things like from 250,000 or from 500,000. Those numbers you see in the marketing are only the investment minimums. Okay, that price, the final price you pay is always going to be much more than that minimum price that you see in those adverts. That's simply talking about the investment. For example, Greece from 250,000 euros. The minimum property price is 250,000. On top of that, you've got the real estate tax. You've got the overall taxes. You've got the application fees. You've got my fees. You've got the program fees, and you're paying for the permit, the residency card costs, things like that. So the investment is going to be 95% of the total cost, okay? But it's not that's not where you're going to end up. That's not going to be your out-of-pocket cost. There's going to be fees on top of that. But the investment gives you a good idea of how much you're going to be able to spend. So this is the three kind of categories these programs fall into: less than 100,000, 100,000 to 350,000, which is going to be the meat of the industry, the bulk of the industry, and 350,000 and more are going to be actually your best programs, your most powerful programs. So there's only a few under the 100,000 mark, and those programs are very kind of niche, very specific. The 350 and up are going to be your best programs. They pretty much help anyone in the world. The ones in the middle are where you really have to start talking about your needs, wants, and goals, and that sort of thing. So, for example, Portugal is in the 350 and above, but Italy is right in the middle of that 100 to 350. So Italy is a very good program, in my opinion, just as good as the Portugal program, but it's half the price. So, but there's benefits to each, of course. So, if your budget is in that, let's say 100 to 150 range, it doesn't count you out. There's still possibilities, just not as many as if you come in with a budget of 500,000, then you're pretty much open to anything, almost anything the industry offers. Of course, there's ones above that 500,000, like the United States EB5 is almost $1 million. So, your best passports in the world, like Hungary and Austria and Malta, those are well over $1 million. But the vast majority, 99% of the industry, the good programs are going to be in that 250 to 500 range. And again, this is just the investment minimum, it's just the investment element of the program. In regards to what that total cost is going to look like, you're going to have to look at that investment that you've chosen, the program and the investment. And then you're going to need to look at any financing that's possible with that investment. So, for example, the Portugal program requires 500,000. If you want to do a fund, that's going to be 500,000 plus all the additional fees. But if you want to do a hospitality project, which we have exclusive hospitality projects, we have upfront financing for that. We have upfront returns for that of 101,000. So you can get 101,000 upfront, and then you only need to add 399 to meet that 500,000 requirement. So the investment is still 500, but you're going to get 101 upfront, so it's only 399 out of pocket for you. So when you're talking about that, so that's going to bring the total cost down. So when you're talking about what's that total cost going to be, there's really no universal answer. It comes down to which program you want to do, which investment option you want to do, and then does that include any financing or anything, upfront returns, and then who's involved, the dependents. You can add there's really no limit to how many dependents you can add, just on which specific dependents. The only limited number is like a spouse. You can only add one spouse, and you can add two sets of parents. Each, the spouse and the main applicant can each have a set of parents. But as far as kids, you can have as many kids as you want. And every time you add a dependent, that's going to increase the price. Now, adults cost more than children because the amount of due diligence that has to be done on a 30-year-old as opposed to a 10-year-old. Think about that. So the 30-year-old adult is going to, let's say 26-year-old, 25-year-old is going to cost more than a 10-year-old child simply because of what's involved. But even if you've got like 6, 10-year-old kids, just then you've got an application of 8 people as opposed to 4 people, that's still going to be more expensive. So you have to factor in the size of the family, who that family makeup, as well as the program and the finance option. And then there's the fees and the taxes. You can't get away from taxes, people, let's be honest. There's the fees, my fees, the application fees. You have to pay for the passport. You have to pay for the residency card. All those things are in addition to the investment. So that's what kind of makes up the total cost. And there's no genuine way of saying add X to the investment. There's no, I can't simply say add 50,000 to the investment and that'll give you a good idea, because it really depends upon the program. But it's going to be more than the total. It's going to be more than the minimum requirement. Whatever you pay, whatever you put into the fund, whatever you bought the house for, that's just the starting. These other factors are going to end up making up your total cost. So just that's why you can't get it, and that's why I can't give you just a basic universal price, because every client's going to be different. So let's take a look at what the whole process looks like. So we have consultations. We'll discuss what's going on. Where's your solution at? So you finally come to a decision that this is the right solution. Okay, let's say that solution happens to be the St. Kitts passport program. Okay, and you're going to make the contribution. You're going to make the 250,000 contribution. The way that's going to work, the way that's going to play out is I'm going to onboard you as a client. You're going to sign an agreement with us so that we can legally represent you, and we're going to send you an invoice, which is my fee, that's going to allow us to represent you, basically retain us. And then we're going to send you a list of the documents you need to collect. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, background checks, that kind of stuff. And then there'll typically be a second invoice, which is for the application fees and things like that, so that we can submit the application. Okay, and this is, once the application is submitted, this is the waiting, and this depends upon each program and each client and all that sort of things. But for St. Kitts, since we're using St. Kitts as an example, we've been getting results in 3 to 6 months. So we submit your application, let's say 3 months later, St. Kitts comes back and says approved in principle. What approved in principle means is everything is approved as long as you make the investment within 90 days and the money clears due diligence. Then you're approved. So they've done the background checks on you, but you haven't made the big payment yet. You haven't made the contribution yet, the investment. You don't, with the Caribbean programs, you only make the contribution after you've been approved. So you've been approved in principle. Now you'll get 90 days to make that contribution payment, 250,000 or whatever. Okay, the faster you make that payment, the faster we get to the passport stage. You'll finalize the investment. They'll conduct the due diligence, the source of funds, and all that money. And then once the money clears, that's when they'll issue the certificate of naturalization, and we'll go to biometrics and passports. But let's say Portugal Golden Visa was your solution. Well, the Golden Visa programs, they move a little bit differently. We'll onboard you as a client, all that stays the same, shoot you out the first invoice so that we can represent you. And then we need to start dealing with the investment. The Golden Visas are investment first, because you're not eligible for the Golden Visa until there's a certificate of investment. It's the certificate of investment that makes you eligible for the program. So we have to go through the investment part first, finalize that investment. So let's say you're going to do one of our hospitality funds. which is where you get the 101,000 up front. So we'll do that investment. You can either choose to make the 500,000 out of pocket and keep the money when it comes, or you can choose to wait for the 101 and then add to it. That, which one you choose, you can do both. It'll just, if you want to wait for the money, that's going to add time for the money to get to you. But then after you finalize that investment, whether it's into a fund or whether it's a piece of real estate or whether it's the hospitality, whatever it may be, then that'll issue a certificate of investment that we can then use to create your golden visa application, which is now when you want to start doing the document collection process. Birth certificates, same kind of deal, same documents. And then once we get all the documents, we can put that together with your certificate of investment and put the application together, and we submit your application. Now, depending upon which program, Italy, Portugal, they all move different. They all move vastly different. Portugal is going to take about a year and a half to go from submission to approval. Usually after we submit your application, within 6 months, around the 6-month mark, maybe before, it's very hit and miss with Portugal. They'll issue a biometric appointment. You'll have to come to Portugal to do your biometrics, and then it's just waiting for the approval. For something like Italy, Italy moves very quickly. The whole process is over in about 6 months. Italy is one exception to Italy. Italy, you make the investment after you get approved. So the Italian golden visa is unique. It's different than all other golden visas in Italy. Italy, you make the investment after you get approved. All other golden visas, you make the investment first, then get it. So that's a standout with Italy. One of the things that I think makes it a better program. But also just keep in mind, when real estate is involved, actual traditional home ownership, even with the passport programs, like I have a St. Kitts option where it's actual titled, freehold real estate. You can live in it. But when you're doing real estate, the real estate transaction always has to happen first, because no agents, nobody's holding that property until you get approved and then coming back. No, you have to make that investment first. So when real estate's involved, the real estate transaction always has to be done first. But if it's a passport program with a contribution, you don't do the contribution until after you've been approved. So just something to keep in mind. But that's the basic layout. Like I said, there's some differential with different programs. Like Italy's a different golden visa type stuff, but most of them will follow this. Now let's talk about these required documents. Again, this is kind of standard here. Passports. We have to have everybody's copies of passports. If a dependent that you want to add to a program doesn't have a passport, they need to get a passport. Simple as that. We cannot process somebody without a passport. Believe it or not, your passports are what connect you to all the world databases that allow for the background checks. So the passports are a requirement. Birth certificates are a requirement for your children, not necessarily for the main applicant. Sometimes it is, but not always. Not necessarily for the spouse, but sometimes it is. But the kids will always need birth certificates. Marriage licenses are standard. Divorce decrees will be required by some programs. If you've been divorced, remarried, they need a divorce decree. Banking records, that goes for the source of funds and sometimes source of wealth. Those are required. Sometimes tax records, not always, but tax records also help with sorts of funds, sorts of wealth. Of course, the police background checks. For American citizens, the police background checks are going to be your FBI checks. So you're going to have to do an FBI thing. There's a very streamlined way of doing the FBI. You can go online and then you can go to the post office. It's very, when we get to that point, and I just send you the links and tell you the instructions, it's very easy. So that's just a one-point thing. For other countries, the police background checks become a little bit more difficult because they don't have a streamlined the system. But nevertheless, we have to get a background check for when 99% of the programs do require it. Not all of them, but 99% of the programs do. So those are, but again, for American citizens, the FBI background check is what we need for everybody. Every adult, everybody over the age of 16 is going to be required a background check. But passports mandatory for everybody. Marriage license will be mandatory. Keep in mind also, especially for the passport programs, if you're married but your spouse is not applying, they may still be involved in the application process, simply because they may share the money with you. If you're married, let's say you're divorced and you have custody of the kid, and it's going to be you and the child, but the child's mother, your ex-wife, is going to be involved simply because of the child. Just things like that to keep in mind that these are the kind of things that are going to come up that we need to talk about. Again, special considerations if you've been divorced, if a spouse or a parent's not applying, something I need to know. Okay, now as far as the passport goes, there are passport programs, and those are direct passport programs. Those are, you're going to pay the money, make the investment, whatever, and you're going to go directly to citizenship, get the passport. The golden visas are not passport programs. There's no passports connected to the golden visas. They are residence. However, the golden visas can lead to a passport. And this is where one of the things we should talk about in the consultation, if a passport is of interest to you. Because while the golden visas do not guarantee you a passport, they do not guarantee you citizenship, they are residency, and they do fall into the naturalization process of the countries. So if a country says, for example, Portugal used to be 5 years, now it's 10 years of residency, legal residency to get to the passport. So if you're a golden visa holder for 5 to 10 years, depending upon when you got in, you will become eligible for citizenship and a passport at that end. Same with Italy. If you do the Italian golden visa, it'll 10 years, you can become eligible for a citizenship and passport. Now, this is something to understand. If you're trying to get to a passport through a golden visa, the passport eligibility may require physical residency. The golden visa, keeping the golden visa does not require physical residency. But if you want to use that golden visa to get to a passport, then it may require physical residency. Also, most of the time, if you go straight to the passport program, there's no language requirement. But if you go golden visa to the passport, there's going to be a language requirement to get that passport that way. No language requirement for the golden visa, but to get to the passport through the golden visa, there will be a passport requirement or a language requirement. But the passport programs, no language requirement. So again, this is something we need to talk about at the consultation stage. How important is the passport to you and that type of stuff. Again, but most golden visas, not all. The UAE will not result in a passport. Malta will not result in a passport, but most of them do. Okay, so now that we've given, that's actually the basic structure of all the programs. All the programs kind of fit into everything I just explained to you there, and 90%. So now let's take a look at what those elements will look like in real life, what those elements manifest as in how these programs look. So let's look at the most popular programs for every budget that I've had on all these different clients I've had this year. Let's look at those individual programs. Now, I do want to just stress again that the prices we're going to show you here are the minimum investment. Your total out-of-pocket is going to be above these numbers. Depending upon the program, will depend upon how much, and like we talked about before. But this is the minimum investment numbers over. Okay. So St. Kitts and Nevis, the #1 passport program in the world, it is the strongest passport available. The contribution, like we were talking about, is $250,000. Starts at $250,000 for 1 to 4 people. That's a family of 4. Think of it as mom, dad, and 2 little kids under the age of 10. Again, ages: 16-year-old children cost more than 10-year-old children. 14, 15-year-old children cost more than 10-year-old children. 8-year-old children, but less than 16-year-olds. So not much, but just a little bit, And then there's hotel shares. The Caribbean is famous for fractional ownership of hotel shares. That's $325, but there's also traditional real estate also at $325. And I do have an exclusive option on a real estate project in St. Kitts. It's actually in Nevis for 1-bedroom studios or studio condos, one-bedroom condos, 2-bedroom condos, and 3-bedroom villas that go from $325 up to $1 million. You can have a spouse, your adult children all the way up to age 30, and parents can be added to St. Kitts. And like I said, 3 to 6 months, we can go from beginning to end. Antigua and Barbuda is the best for very large families because they have a 6+ person option at 260. So you can do the 230 for up to a family of 4. But if you have more than 6 people, then there's a 260 contribution. So this is really built for large families. Again, as you can see, you can add your grandparents to this one. You can add your siblings to this one. Takes a bit longer to get approved on this because there's more people usually. And the real estate is a little bit lower, but it depends again upon the real estate you're looking for. This picture right here is an actual piece of real estate that I do have for the Antigua program, but it's at 1.5 million. So honestly, for the real estate in Antigua, you're not going to see anything at that 300 mark. So, but that's the minimum required investment, but you're not going to really find anything at that level. It's going to be above that. But Antigua and Barbuda is really the best for large families. Then Grenada, these are the big three. There's 5 Caribbean passport programs, but the big three are St. Kitts, Antigua, and Grenada. Grenada offers the best access for the U.S. because it's part of the U.S. E2 treaty. So lots of non-U.S. citizens tend to be interested in Grenada. Not so many U.S. citizens interested in Grenada. U.S. citizens tend to be more interested in St. Kitts, but this is really good. This is still a really good program. It's among the cheapest. It's $235 for a family of 4. The hotel shares are the lowest at $270, and the real estate is also $300 again. But again, $300. There's some options for real estate, but not a lot. But as you can see, this is the other program that allows grandparents and siblings, which is also why it's going to take long to get approved here. But this is those are the big 3: St. Kitts, Grenada, and Antigua. You also have Dominica, which is a good passport. It's also the most flexible with financing options and for the price point. So if these numbers see a little bit too high, then write me. Let's talk about Dominica. St. Lucia is the 5th one. St. Lucia has the only genuine exit where it has a bond option where you'll put $350, get $300 back in 5 years. It's just St. Lucia takes 2 years to get approved, so it's just not viable for many people. St. Kitts, Grenada, and Antigua are your big 3 and your best options. Now, those are the passport programs. Those are the most popular passport programs. There's more. There's Vanuatu. There's Turkey, which is real estate based. Those are kind of niche programs. If you want passport with real estate in Europe, then we can talk about Turkey. That's $400,000 or above. But those 3 Caribbean are your most popular. Now, Portugal is your most popular, your #1 golden visa in the world. And the reason for that is because with Portugal, you can get the Portuguese passport from the comfort of your home. There's no physical residency required to get the passport. Okay, it's the only golden visa in the world that allows you to acquire the passport with no physical residency. You just have to keep the legal residency, the golden visa or the permanent residency. You just have to maintain that, but you don't ever have to move to Portugal. The price point's $500, but again, we have hospitality shares options that offer upfront financing and upfront returns. We also offer programs that give you a full investment, so you'll put $399 in and get $500 back. Spouse or partner, this is a very LGBTQ friendly program. This is our #1 LGBTQ program. And spouse or partner, children up to age 26, and parents. The approval time is kind of in flux right now. It's going to be reduced down to 12 to 18 months. And the Portugal Golden Visa does exempt you from the EES biometrics at the border and the e-visa requirement that's coming in. So again, this is the #1 program in the world. Funds and company shares, we have exclusivity on the company shares. So if you want that 101 or we have one that's 175,000 upfront returns. To lower your out-of-pocket, just let me know about that. Those are the most popular Portugal Golden Visa options. The US EB5 is the #2 most popular Golden Visa in the world. Obviously not for Americans, but it is the 800,000 for the investment. It's a company share, like job creation type thing. We've been getting green cards in as fast as 4 months with some clients. However, this is shutting down in 2027. So if you are interested in the EB5 and access to the greatest wealth generating market in the galaxy, we need to get you in and submitted before September of 2026, because this is closing down and being replaced by the Trump Gold Card and Trump Platinum Card. And again, we have financing options available and you get your money back. It is a full investment return. Then what I think is an underrated and definitely one of the best golden visas out there is the Italy golden visa. It's half the price of Portugal, 250,000. It is a very innovative approach. It's a hotel real estate tokenization sort of thing. But what makes this Italian golden visa so powerful is number one, this is the only program, only golden visa where you get approved first and then you pay the 250. You don't get approved, you don't pay the 250. Number one. Number two, lifetime residency. This is renewable for life. You don't have to switch to permanent residency if you don't want to. You don't have to go on to citizenship if you don't want to. Those are options, but you don't have to. The golden visa itself is renewable for life. And number three, very important, this is also the only EU golden visa where you can recoup your investment, get your 250 back, and keep the golden visa residency. In Portugal, when you get your investment back, you lose the golden visa residency. So you have to switch to permanent residency in Portugal if you want to get your investment back. In Italy, there's ways of getting your investment back. There's actually three exit strategies. You can recoup the investment, but you keep the golden visa residency. You keep the residency. Those three things to me are the most powerful. And number four, it's Italy, which I think Italy is far better than Portugal personally. But I am an Italian citizen as well, and an American citizen, so I'm a bit partial there. And number five, Italy is approved in 3 to 6 months, so it's one of the fastest. And bonus, if you're sort of in flux with the citizenship by descent issue that's happening, with the Italian citizenship by descent issue. As you know, if you've studied citizenship by descent in Italy, there's two ways of doing it: through an embassy or in Italy. This golden visa residency can be used as your in-country residency to do the citizenship by descent process. So you've got your golden visa, you just pick a commune, move your residency into that commune, and you can do your golden visa, you can do your citizenship by descent through that commune. Okay, and also, if you're going to live in Italy, then that puts you on track to be for citizenship and a passport. It takes 10 years of physical residency to get to the passport. But also, if you're going to live in Italy, the golden visa does make you eligible for the tax optimization programs. They have a 200,000 euro flat tax. There's a 7% tax down in the southern communes for pensioners. So this is by far, to me, is one of the best. If top two, Italy and Portugal, are the two best EU options out there, in my opinion. Then there's Greece. Greece is still going very strong for the simple fact it's one of the very few real estate options left. Greece has three levels of investment: 250, 400, 800. Depending upon what you want to use the property for and where the property is located, dictates which price point you're at. The 250 is the lowest option, but that's not for client use. Most of them. There's a few in the 250 realm that clients can use, but not live in full time, but use. The 250 option is mainly tourist type things and managed properties for the local rental market. If you're looking for actual home ownership, deeded title home ownership, then you're at the 400 and 800,000 tiers. And the difference between them is location. If you've heard of the Greek city, Athens, Mykonos, Santorini, Thessaloniki, Crete, that's going to be at least an €800,000 investment. The secondary cities only require 400. Also, at the 400 to 800 level, the property has to be at least 120 square meters, 1,300 square feet in size, which is relatively big. So, in Athens, you're not going to be getting anything at 800. In Mykonos, you're not going to get anything at 800. Santorini, you're going to be around the 1.5 million in those places. Again, actually, we've been getting golden visas at the 250 range. We've been getting golden visas approved in as fast as 6 months. Spouse, partner, children up to 21. This is a hard 21. There's no exceptions for dependency with Greece. It's 21, under 21, and that's it. Parents, and it is ETIOS exempt and EES exempt. And again, we do have a few options at the 250 tier that gives you upfront returns to help level that down to 200, 220. But there's very few opportunities there. They're very small projects. So if you're interested in that upfront money for the Greece golden visa, get a hold of me fast. And let's talk about Malta. Malta is one of the most affordable. Greece, just mention this real quick. Greece is permanent residency, direct to permanent residency. Okay, so you can keep, as long as you hold the ownership of the property, you keep the residency in Greece. Okay, so if you want to keep the resident for 30 years, you have to own the property for 30 years. Malta is the other permanent residency golden visa, direct to permanent residency. But not only is it cheaper than Greece, you only have a 5 year. After that 5 years, you don't have to hold the investment anymore and you keep the permanent residency. The difference is in Malta, it's going to be a contribution plus a real estate, whereas in Greece, it's just real estate. So you are going to be making a government contribution under the Malta program. And the real estate in the Malta program can be a rental. We can rent you an apartment. We can rent a villa to satisfy the whole. You do not have to purchase the property like you do in Greece. Okay, and the people you can add to the Malta application is far more extensive. You can add your adult children, no age limits. You can add your parents, you can add your grandparents. If you add your child and he later gets married, he can add his new wife. Malta is very liberal. It's a very LGBTQ, good for LGBTQ also. It's ETIS and ES exemption. Big thing to know, this will not lead to a passport. Okay, the Malta Golden Visa, there's talks in the future that they're going to modify it a little bit because Malta lost its passport program. So there's talks that it may in the future be changed to allow it, but currently the Golden Visa does not lead to citizenship. But it is among the most affordable. It is an English-speaking country, and this is an actual picture from Malta. It was colonized by the British many years ago, and they drive on the wrong side of the road. They speak British English. You see the phone boxes there, the red telephone box. This is an actual picture from Malta. This is what it looks like. So again, no physical residency required, though. You don't have to live in Malta. You don't have to live in Greece. You don't have to live in Portugal. You don't have to live in Italy. These are just, you keep the residency, but it's an optional. Now Latvia, becoming very popular because it is the fastest and the most affordable. 100,000 euro investment. It shares in a company, spouse children up to 21. If you come to Riga, the capital city of Latvia, we've been getting approvals in as fast as 4 to 8 weeks. If you do it through the embassy, it can take around 4 months. This is a 5-year visa, 5-year residency, renewable for another 5 years. I do have a 100,000 euro option where you'll get the 100,000 back, so it's a full investment return. There is a 50,000 option, but the company involved has to maintain certain things in order to stay eligible. And if the company falls out of eligibility, you lose your gold visa. So the 50,000 is viable if you're only looking for 3, 4, 5 years of residency. If you really want a strong 5 years or more, then you need to beat the 100,000 option. You need to beat the option we have here. But if you're only looking for a few years of residency, the 50,000 option is viable. But again, fastest, most affordable EU Golden Visa. It is 5 years renewable one time. Then Spain. Spain used to have a golden visa, but then they terminated it in April. So there's no more golden visa in Spain. However, we do now have what we call passive income visa. And this is Spain has a passive income visa, but you have to have a pre-existing form of passive income to register to be eligible for that visa. The program we're offering, you don't have to have that passive income. The program creates the passive income for you. So you're going to invest 150, and that 150 is going to trickle back to you over 3 years as passive income, along with 3% ROI. And then at the end of that 3 years, you can reinvest it for 3 more, and that'll take you to the 6-year mark, where year 5 you apply for permanent residency. You do have to live in Spain. For any Spain program, you have to live in Spain. Spain is very much about physical residency. So You do have to live in Spain, but this is a full investment return plus some ROI. You don't have to have your own passive income. We generate it for you, so you can keep your passive income off to the side. This does give you ETIS exemption, does give you ES exemption. Will make you eligible for a permanent residency as long as you've lived in the country. And again, once you have permanent residency, you can move on to the passport if you want to. Spain does not recognize dual citizenship. So if you want a Spanish passport, you'll have to renounce US, British, whatever nationality you have. Most people just stay permanent resident forever. But this is an affordable program for many people. And again, it's a full investment return plus 3%. Plus, it creates the revenue stream for you, the passive income. So you don't have to have one already. This is the keys that you've seen at the bottom of the screen here for all the different ones. This is just so you can go back and check it out. And this is me. And that's pretty much all we're going to talk about today. Uh, just a few questions. I answer a few questions here. What happens if you make the investment in a golden visa and you don't get approved? The investment is outside the golden visa program. That's why you have to make the investment first. That makes you eligible. Should you make the investment and then get denied the golden visa for some reason, the investment's still good. The investment agreement's still good. If you agreed to a full investment return in year 6, you're still going to get your full investment return in year 6. If the agreement, some of our Portugal opportunities have free annual hotel shares or free annual hotel stays, like 4 weeks a year free. Even if you get denied the golden visa, you still get those 4 weeks free every. Everything about the investment stays intact regardless of what happens to the golden visa, because it's separate. You still own the property, you're still in the fund, you'll still get the investment return, whatever the agreement is. Okay, you just won't have the residence. And again, with the passport programs, you make the investment after approval, unless you're buying real estate. And if you were to be denied passport, you'd still own the real estate. So you always have the investment no matter what. Okay, and that's about that. So again, that is our basic. That is the basic masterclass for today. I hope everyone found that informative. And again, shoot me an email, schedule a free consultation. We'll go through it all. And thank you for joining. See you next time. And let me help you make the world your plan B. Thank you.